Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
The World Health Organization (WHO) is conducting a series of clinical trials known as the Solidarity Trial. These trials are intended to compare potential drug treatment options against standard of care. So this means that they will compare drug treatments against standard care which people receive without drugs after they are diagnosed as COVID-19 positive. Now, until there is evidence that these drugs work, the WHO cautions physicians and medical bodies against using these drugs because they are as of yet unproven, and this is standard procedure. The Solidarity Trial came about to expedite the speed at which new or repurposed drugs are being developed to treat COVID-19. The WHO estimates that the time taken to design and conduct these trials will come down by 80% with the Solidarity Trial. They say that enrolling patients in even one single randomized trial will help facilitate rapid worldwide comparison of unproven treatments, and this will in turn overcome the risk of multiple small trials not generating strong enough evidence to determine the efficacy of these potential treatments. There are over 100 countries that are now enrolled in the Solidarity Trial with over hundreds of thousands of participants that the drugs are to be tested for. There are 4 combinations of drugs that are being tested: remdesivir, lopinavir ritonavir combination with the interferon beta 1A, and chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine. These are all existing drugs, and this is normal because when we try to repurpose existing drugs rather than develop new ones for new infections, we typically tend to achieve a desired result faster and in a cheaper manner. To enroll in this trial, all COVID-19 positive adults are eligible to participate. Of course, each participant will be tested by the team that is responsible for that study group. The patients are tested for other comorbidities and previously existing conditions. The main ones that are recorded are diabetes, heart disease, chronic lung disease, chronic liver disease, and asthma. For the African regions, even HIV and tuberculosis are included. The medical team responsible for each patient will check for all of these underlying conditions and then figure out which group of drug the patient needs to be added to. Severity of illness for a patient at the entry into the study is determined by recording parameters like shortness of breath, whether the patient is being given oxygen, whether the patient is already on a ventilator, and if they have any abnormalities in their lungs. The patients are then randomized and allocated to one of the study options. Information collected from this study will be anonymized, and it will be collected either at the randomization stage or when a patient is discharged or dies. The kind of data that is collected would be on which study drugs were given and for how many days, whether a patient required ventilator or intensive care or an ICU or oxygen, and how they were treated subsequently, and the date of discharge or date of death, as well as the cause of death. Overall, there are 5 groups of study: the 4 combination drugs that we mentioned before, and the control group, which is the local standard care. This means that this group, the control group, will not be given any additional experimental drug, and their results will be used as a measure to test how other groups are faring. This is the first control group. The second group will be administered remdesivir. This drug was originally developed by the company Gilead Sciences as a potential treatment for hepatitis C about 10 years ago. It did not work successfully against the disease, and then it was then repurposed when the Ebola outbreak occurred in 2013 to 2016. This is normal. All drugs are experimentally repurposed for new diseases, and it was also tested for Ebola. It didn't work against Ebola either. And for COVID-19, the drug shows promise in laboratory settings. In petri dishes and test tubes, it has shown to be able to prevent the virus from replicating by inhibiting its replication mechanism. And in fact, during the SARS and MERS outbreaks previously, which were also caused by other coronaviruses, it worked in animals. So now we're hoping that it may work in humans as well outside of test tubes and labs. But remdesivir is administered intravenously as an IV, and thus can only work when the infection is already underway. Remdesivir causes typical antiviral drug side effects such as nausea and headaches. Lopinavir ritonavir is a licensed treatment for HIV. These drugs are also protease inhibitors, which means they inhibit virus replication. In this combination, lopinavir is the primary drug that works on the virus, and ritonavir acts as a booster for lopinavir, increasing its levels and effects on viruses. This combination has also shown promise in the lab in petri dishes on virus, but so far we haven't had any conclusive positive evidence in humans yet. This drug is taken as a tablet, and side effects include development of gastrointestinal problems such as vomiting and diarrhea. But some experiments have shown that the number of days spent in ICU has been shortened. That makes sense because a lot of these drugs which have similar results where the number of days spent in intensive care is shortened, these drugs work by reducing viral load, which means they reduce the severity of infection. So it is natural that a patient remains for lesser time in ICU. However, this has not conclusively been established yet for any of the drugs that we're discussing today. The next drug combo that is studied is again lopinavir ritonavir, but in combination with interferon beta 1a. Now, interferons are proteins called cytokines that are produced by our own body. These proteins are used to communicate between immune cells, and they can also boost immune response. So typically, when a cell gets infected by a virus, it produces cytokines which then trigger the nearby cells to kick into immune defense mode. Interferon beta 1a, or this class of interferons, also bind to target cells, and they can then also prevent virus from replicating. Thus, the interferon beta 1a also works to reduce viral load in the body as well as making the immune response stronger. All of this is provided if it works in humans outside of laboratory settings. The interferons are produced from hamster cells normally, and they're used to treat multiple sclerosis. It's not a cure for MS, it simply makes the disease more manageable. It's administered through a needle and can sometimes have serious side effects such as liver issues and even mental health issues like the onset of depression. This was found during hepatitis C trials in the US a few years ago. The last experimental group would be given chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine, the names that we are most familiar with today. ICMR has mandated hydroxychloroquine as a prophylaxis, which means it is meant to be used preventively, to be taken so that we prevent the disease from infecting us. There is currently no evidence that it works as a prophylaxis, although it has been used as a prophylaxis for other diseases, most notably malaria. Small studies in China and France have shown that hydroxychloroquine could work against pneumonia, but chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine have been used for years to treat malaria and rheumatology conditions, because of which several authorities generally consider them to be safe. Of course, it was rampantly taken in India also as a prophylaxis against malaria. The fact that they worked to prevent one disease doesn't necessarily mean that they're safe for another without proper trials. And we still don't know if hydroxychloroquine, for example, could exacerbate COVID. In the lab, in test tubes and petri dishes, again, it works against the SARS-CoV-2 by disabling its replication and reducing viral load. But HCQ specifically is usually tried for every new viral infection that comes along, and it hasn't so far worked successfully against any virus in the human bodies. The drug has come into some controversy as it has caused cardiotoxicity among many patients in Western countries, which means it has led to arrhythmia or irregular heartbeat. We don't yet have enough information about its effects when taken as prophylaxis because there haven't been studies that were conducted. It also has other side effects, including the regular antiviral effects of nausea and headaches, but it also sometimes can produce tinnitus, which is ringing in ears, and eye damage. One of the earliest studies from France that showed positive results of hydroxychloroquine against COVID-19 has now deemed to be not rigorous enough for publication and thus is no longer considered valid. But hydroxychloroquine has still attained a lot of attention, especially in US and India. The effectiveness of these drugs can only be determined after proper randomized controlled trials that are strictly monitored for quality. Until then, it's simply too early to tell if they work or don't. And because of side effects, it is usually unethical to prescribe these drugs without establishing studies and evidence. That's why hydroxychloroquine particularly has come under the scanner and has generated so much controversy in both these countries. Now, all of this ambiguity about existing drugs and new drugs and drugs that are being developed to treat a disease is a part of the process of science, because a conclusion can only be reached after thorough studies, and results are expected to vary here and there. That is standard and normal and expected. The only absolute thing we can do while all these drugs are being tested as potential treatments is practice the three holy measures of wearing a mask, washing hands regularly with soap, and most importantly, practice physical distancing. This is Sandhya Ramesh from Bengaluru for The Print.